us. I'm joined by the usual suspects. Sir, introduce yourself.
Hello, it's Kenoshi Abominito. Glad to be here on another one of these BS busters.
Glad to have you. It's me, Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters, and we're back on another cast. So, sir, what you been playing?
Visions of Mana and Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah, man, I've been playing that game too. Not Visions of Mana, Black Myth Wukong. I'm gonna get Visions of Mana probably 2 weeks from now.
Yeah,
Not 2 weeks. The week after next. Because man, I have too many games to play, and life has just been, you know, my time has been subsumed in all types of other shit.
yeah,
Um,
that happens.
yeah, but it's good being busy because it means life goes on.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've been playing Sung Wukong, sorry, Black Myth Wukong, and I've been playing. I got Hogwarts Legacy on the Steam sale, the little mini Steam sale, and I've been playing that and Bait and Catus One and Two HD remastered. And I'm trying to get a load list, a mod list done for a new Starfield run. I'm trying to do a semi total world conversion where it's being converted into a Star Wars game, but alas, alas, bullshit. So anyway, um, so I guess we'll get to the first thing first. The first story first, sir.
yeah. What's the first story?
First story is the continuous flailing of the video game industry in regards to the shedding of jobs. So I am going to screen share this so people can, well, not screen share it. I'm just gonna read it. This is an article says the two ways to save a video game industry on fire. Video games have never been easier to make. Blah 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 blah. That's a challenge, etc. etc. Um, so So here we go. Actually, I am screen sharing it. Haha. So these are this is done by Chris Plant. I'm going to read it and then we're going to discuss it. Haha. This came out yesterday. Um, Polygon's editor's letter is a column for the editor in chief, Chris Plant, that reflects on the video game and entertainment industries, their communities, and Polygon itself. New editions appear in the first week of each month. Okay, let's start with a spoonful of sugar. Making a video game is faster, cheaper, and easier than today than it has been at any point in history. Uh, now that we got that spoonful of sugar out, let's continue with the rest of it. The internet's tummy has been so generously stuffed with developer-friendly videos, podcasts, Discord channels, freely available academic courses, GitHub pages, and cheap ebooks that it can enjoy a long hibernation. Video game engine licensors have all but removed the financial barrier to entry, taking their fees on the back end. Skeptical of megacorps, sorry, devs can pick from an expanding roster of indie engines too. Some of them totally free. And when it's time to publish, Steam and itch.io will host a game and provide everything required to convert ludological art into cold cash for a nominal cut. We live in an age of opportunity, which ironically is part of the problem. Change has been exponential and at worst possible time. Change has been exponential and at the worst possible time. Over the past decade, video game developers, increasing exponentially, have flooded the market faster than the industry, from AAA publishers to independent studios, could adapt. Within that flood, a nightmare economic scenario began to swirl. The COVID 19 pandemic created a temporary spike of interest that attracted misplaced investment from video game outsiders and overspending from video game insiders. Venture capitalists got suckered into imaginary high ceiling, quote, opportunities in blockchain, esports, and VR rather than more established but presumed low ceiling studios making traditional single player experiences. And then, with all those bubbles fully inflated, fear of a recession launched US interest rates. Rates rocketed so high they now appear to be stuck in orbit, meaning the average game studio investor will be deeply hesitant to borrow money to fund a new project. Voila, the video game industry of 2024. Since January, industry leaders have been murmuring the mantra "survive to 25," but I fear the long-term forecast is clouded with a chance of fucked. Okay, all right. This guy has some interesting writing styles. um,
Yeah.
yeah, the AAA death cycle. Consider if you can muster the sympathy the AAA video game publisher. Where in the past a publisher's individual games would compete against a few dozen releases a year, they now compete against dozens a week, plus subscription services, perpetually updated free to play games, and the latest patch or expansion to the biggest hits of years past. These publishers grew large and comfortable from a retail distribution system that cost a great deal but prohibited upstarts from setting up camp on shelves at GameStop and Walmart. With soaring profits, publishers opened studios across the world to build games that became more ambitious and expensive with each console cycle. But things gradually changed. Valve launched Steam in 2003, creating an alternate route for a limited group of established game publishers to reach fans without upfront distribution costs. Microsoft launched Xbox Live Arcade a year later, a curated digital distribution service celebrating hand-picked, smaller, often independently developed games. By 2017, the dams had broken. All creators had the freedom to publish directly on the platforms like itch.io and Steam with minimal roadblocks. Got a game? Don't mind filling out tax forms? You're all set. In 2024, those AAA publishers that once maintained a mob-like grip on distribution and audience attention have been humbled. They share the same real estate as every other game available on Steam, Game Pass, or any other major digital storefront. The new Halo gets crammed into the same promotional rectangle as the latest Vampire Survivors clone, hentai visual novel, or indie darling that promises hundreds of hours of entertainment for the price of a cup of coffee. Imagine if the main distribution model for the film industry was YouTube. The biggest movie swimming in the same algorithmic ocean as college student films, wedding videos, 4-hour video essays, 1 minute long goofs, and viral sludge that dares to ask, is it cake? AAA video game publishers have doubled down on what worked in the past to differentiate themselves in the market, making their games bigger and more realistic. As development budgets soar, so do marketing budgets meant to provide some reassurance to these increasingly risky bets. Higher costs mean higher sales goals, mean bigger games and bigger marketing to meet those goals, in turn spurring higher costs. Snake meat tail. I was about to say the snake eating its own tail. He beat me to it. Uh, here's just one outcome from this ludicrous loop of one-upmanship. In May, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was the 4th best-selling game of the year in the US. Good news, right? Square Enix leadership called its sales a disappointment, and the company's stocks fell the most they had in 13 years. Simply put, a AAA game can no longer be the best-selling game. It has to be the best-selling game. That's not sustainable.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. It
understand.
certainly isn't sustainable.
No, it is not. It's like well, I'll use my analogy. Well, no, I can use it now. It's like basically being a married man or a married woman and expecting every time you and your spouse do it, it's gonna be ball out the park, the best shit ever. It's unrealistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it's just gonna be, look, the kids are asleep. We got to get up early in the morning. We got 10 minutes. Knock it out. Let's go to bed. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Sometimes you're just not as into it as, you know,
Look.
sometimes
You
you're just
want to
not
have
feeling it
intimacy.
as
They want to
much.
have intimacy, but you ain't got time to do it right. So let's get it out the way and go to bed. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I understand that among many in the gaming community, there's not any love lost for publishers struggling to stay afloat in this new, more theoretically democratic era in which everyone has access to distribution. But remember that a publisher isn't just a bunch of wealthy execs. Most of those impacted by this paradigm shift are game makers. In 2023, video game studios laid off more than 10,000 people. In 2024, the video game industry hit that grim milestone in less than 6 months. Go indie? Not so simple. If you're an optimist or an anarchist, this turmoil might sound like short term pain that could lead to long term gain. The old structures that consolidated capital are crumbling, and with the resulting stones, independent creators will build a better and more equitable future. But that will only be true if independent creators can pull together the funds to lay a foundation. For years, indie game studios have benefited from readily available investment and upfront payments. New services like Epic Game Store, Xbox Game Pass, and Apple Arcade competed for exclusives. Venture capitalists were eager to throw money at anybody willing to say they love NFTs, and the interest rates were low. Today, all that oil has been sucked from the earth. As my former colleague Megan Farrakamenesh, okay, I spelt that phonetically. pronounce that phonetically, wrote at Wired, indie video game studios are also struggling to survive the current economic landscape. The same core problem that AAA publishers face, how do you get someone to give a shit about your game when they have countless other options, remains the same. And unlike publishers, most indie developers don't have millions of dollars in savings to fund an umbrella to weather this economic shitstorm. So we have a AAA industry in distress with no reasonable plan forward, shedding thousands of game makers each year. And we have an indie game investment ecosystem that's no longer prepared to provide an alternative. I can't shake this quote from Farak Manesh's piece. Survive till 25 assumes that we are encountering a long winter rather than having burned our own crops for 3 years previous, says Xavier Nelson, studio head of El Paso, elsewhere developer Strange Scaffold. Unless we start planning differently, unless we start changing the way we work and think about making games, then we're going to continue to see the highest highs and the lowest lows that games has ever seen. And it might, in fact, just get worse. So what does it mean to plan differently? I believe this problem is bigger than any one studio, let any one person. The industry surviving beyond 25 will require experimentation with many different approaches from creators small and big to find a replicable path forward. 2 steps towards sustainable game industry. I have a pair of ideas to contribute to the conversation. First, I'm thrilled to see funds that help indie studios get through this moment, especially Outer Sloth, a fund from Among Us developer Inner Sloth that takes a recoup and reshare approach. That which is to say, it seeks to recoup its investment and the share of revenue. Of course, that assumes the game makes back their investment, a feat a majority of video games fail to accomplish. To that point, it's just as important as money is expertise. An investment becomes harder to come by. As investment becomes harder to come by, it's more important than ever that indie game studio heads learn the intricacies of operating a business. The industry needs better mentorship and training programs, and universities with expensive game development degrees must make a business a mandatory part of the curriculum. We can't keep telling artists all they need is a great idea. It's simply not true. And second, AAA publishers must break the cycle of scale. If the goal of every publisher is to have the #1 game in the market, I have terrible mathematical news. There are hundreds of studios and only one #1 game. I can't help but see the Marvel Cinematic Universe formula within the current AAA game development model, with executives addicted to past success, recreating facsimiles of exhausted franchises that are begging to be shipped to a farm upstate. AAA publishers must accept that the old dominance won't return. They now must operate as part of a crowded ecosystem rather than as an exception to it. That means making more and smaller games, diversifying portfolios, launching fresh IP, and pursuing underserved audiences. Things are bad. Things could get worse. The boat is sinking. It's caught on fire. Now somebody grab a goddamn bucket. Somebody grab the extinguisher. And for all that's good in the world, somebody start thinking differently about where to sell this thing. Because if the industry doesn't find smooth water soon, this boat is going under. Woo! Hot damn.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't keep putting all this money into your eggs in one basket.
Yep.
And not everybody's gonna like what you're selling them.
Mm-hmm.
You have to diversify you not only would it, make more sense to make these games smaller, also diversify what kind of games you're making too.
Yep. Stop spit. Look, indies. I am less than familiar with indies. I know that their budgets are smaller and they tend to. They have more risk because they don't have the resources if the game fails. But if your game costs you $3 million to make, and you sell like 1 million copies, and it's $30, you're good.
Yeah.
You're good. If your game costs $300 million to make, no, yeah, $300 million to make, just to make the game, not another $200 million to fucking advertise the game. That's a $500 million game. And it's like, oh man, and then that's just in let's say Europe. Let's say in order to advertise it in the US, that's another $250 million. That's $750 million for one game, and it only sells like 1 million. Yeah, your game's not doing well. It barely breaks even.
Yeah.
And that's unsustainable. It's unfucking sustainable. I don't know why they keep on doing this.
Yeah.
They're like,
Well,
no, go ahead, sir.
And now they're pivoting to these live service games, which Sony just shut down in Concord.
Yeah, I heard it was bad too, man. I heard that game was not very good.
Great. No,
I heard it was not good.
shut it. They shut that game down, and it's just like they still haven't caught up to the fact that it's not 2020 anymore, and people aren't locked in their houses. That was one of the driving forces for these free to play
I
live
think
service games.
partially. I think partially. I think also like these companies. Okay, the people who invest in these games were thinking, oh well, people, because they expect gamers to be stupid.
Yeah,
They
that
think
too.
gamers are dumb. They think, oh well, you play video games, you sit in the basement, you play video games. So if we put NFTs instead of getting a job, you're gonna buy this shit that we don't have a marketplace for, so that you can resell, so it has no actual value. This these NFTs, this blockchain shit, we don't actually have the capacity to resell these and convert them into real money for people. So you are essentially selling people Chuck E. Cheese dollars
Yeah,
that you can't use anyplace else but Chuck E. Cheese. Except it's not Chuck E. Cheese. It's the other thing that Chuck E. Cheese bought that went out of business. So it's like it's like this shit's useless. The most I can do is wipe my ass with it. Except I can't even do that because it's fake. It doesn't exist. It's virtual.
yeah,
I mean, this is, and they used it to get marketers and people to invest in it. Oh, NFTs, blockchain, blah 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 blah, crypto, blah 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 blah. It's like, is this actually working? No, then stop it.
yeah, yeah. I just think it's honestly, they're not gonna learn until they go bankrupt. Like it just seems like every step of the way something goes wrong, and they just never fail. They keep pushing right on ahead.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, here's
Right?
the thing. I don't want, I don't want the video game industry to go under, because you need competition. You need competition. You need other people doing stuff. It can't all be just one. You know?
I don't think it's gonna go under. I just think honestly, there's gonna be people, mainly the AAA developers, that'll hurt, and will probably have uh, either you know indie games, mid tier games for a while before they can figure out what the heck they want to do with AAA. So, but I know a lot of people build their computers and buy their consoles for a lot of these big AAA experiences. But
Yeah. But I mean, technically, I mean, Black Myth's Sun Wukong initially was a, that originally was like a little video, like a computer, like a game developer student thing, and the guy's like, oh shit, I need to get more money in order to make this shit, um, you know, something that I can do something with, and that's how that became a thing. And that
yeah,
game became huge. That game became like a huge thing.
yeah. I mean, that's a similar story to Cave Story. Just some guy on his computer, during college making a game, and then eventually it turned into something bigger. And uh, that game showed that you can make it as an indie developer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, look, listen. I'm not one of those people's like anti-indie. I think that you need everything. You need independent develop. It's like it's
You need
like it's like
variety.
dealer. It's like car dealerships, right? You need used car dealerships. You need independent people who like have a car that they upgraded and their old car is still in relatively good condition, and they just want to make a little bit of money. Independent sellers. You need to have the dealerships for people who want something that is high end, factory warranty, that type of thing. You need a market that caters to all income brackets. You need a video game industry. You need those $5 indies all the way up to $60, $70 games. You need everything in order for it to work. Because, you want to have like, okay, I want Dragon Quest 3 3 HD 2D HD. That's like my game. That's my most anticipated game of this year.
Yeah.
You know, and while I do like the bigger games, I also like small games. Like I said, one of the games I've been enjoying the shit out of this year, Steam World Heist 2. That's an indie game.
Yeah.
You know, and Baiting Kato's 1 and 2 HD, the HD remaster. That's a remaster of a game that came out over 20 years, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, on the GameCube, which I have like 2 copies of that game because I scraped the shit out of the disc on the first one because I played it so much. Having that game, I mean, it's not 60 frames per second, but you don't really need high frame rate for you don't need a high frame rate for an RPG,
Yeah.
like a turn-based RPG like that. Now, if I was playing like Tales of Symphonia, I'm like, why the fuck is this not 60 frames per second? I don't need that for this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, man. Yeah, yeah. So all I'm saying is, gaming has been gaming needs to try something different.
Yeah.
Try something different, y'all. Do something different. Try something different. And I stand by that statement. Uh, with that being said, do you have anything else to add before we go into the next topic?
No.
All right. Next topic. This is someone from Polygon's list of the top Legend of Zelda games. I vehemently disagree with this list. I'm just gonna get it out there first. But let's get to it. Here we go. This is the Legend of Zelda games ranked in a series that's almost all classics. Which of Link's adventures is best? Ollie West, Michael McWhirter, Anna Diaz, Maddie Myers, and Mike Mahardy. This came out December 31st, 2023. I am just going to go over which ones they say. Okay, number 16, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. Number 15, Phantom Hourglass. Number 14, Twilight Princess. Number 13, Oracle of Ages, Oracle of Seasons. Number 12, Spirit Tracks. Number 11, The Legend of Zelda. Number 10, Skyward Sword. Number 9, A Link Between Worlds. Number 8, The Minish Cap. Number 7, Link's Awakening. The original. Number 6, Wind Waker. Number 5, Ocarina of Time. Number 4, Breath of the Wild. Number 3, A Link to the Past. Number 2, Majora's Mask. And number 1, Tears of the Kingdom. Oh, God. Okay.
We should switch Tears of the Kingdom with A Link to the Past.
I wouldn't even put Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild on this list. Because they don't, to me, those games don't feel like Legend of Zelda games. So I wouldn't even, and since Nintendo themselves have revamped their timeline, putting them on their own little their list of Legend of Zelda games, those 2 games exist in their own little universe, which is perfect because it doesn't fit anywhere else in that entire series. I don't like they don't play like there's no real dungeons. Like there's key features missing in these games that are in other Legend of Zelda games. I just kind of like don't consider them to be Legend of Zelda games. It might be tangentially related, but I don't consider that. So I would pick those up and throw them out. That's just me. Majora's Mask is good, but it's a little too short.
Yeah, I mean, if you know what you're doing, you could probably finish that game in a day.
Yeah, and like for me, like my ideal Legend of Zelda game feels like you're on an epic quest. Majora's Mask is not an epic quest. It's a series of depressing quests that you do over and over and over again in a very small world. It feels like an expansion to Ocarina of Time. So for that reason, I don't put it on the list. Okay? It's not
Yeah.
that's not my list. So that's 3 games right out of there. We're down to 13. For me, my number one's going to be Link to the Past because without Link to the Past, every other modern Legend of Zelda game after that just is missing something. Because Link to the Past is like a perfected version of the original Legend of Zelda. Okay? More dungeons, more world, great artwork. Even now, the artwork for Link to the Past, I wish they would go back to that fucking artwork in 2D Legend of Zelda games. Um, and then after that, I'm gonna say Twilight Princess over Ocarina of Time. Hear me out. Hear me out. Ocarina of Time. Everyone's like, I love Ocarina of Time. It's fucking amazing. Ocarina of Time is a 3D shittier version of Link to the Past.
Yeah.
Okay, except here's the thing. In Link to the Past, your kid version of Link is just Link in the light world with the normal sword that he got from his uncle who died in the sewer. Okay?
Yeah.
And it's not as depressing because you still feel that power that you still as you complete the light world dungeons and finally get the master sword, you still feel like, "Oh man, I can still do some shit." Kid Link, like literally the first third of that game, Kid Link is trash in Ocarina of Time. It makes you not. I know people who stopped playing that fucking game because Kid Link was so trash.
Yeah.
So for that reason, I'm gonna put Ocarina of Time like lower out of the list. Okay, it's lower down the list. Okay, for me, Twilight Princess is a better version of Ocarina of Time. That's why it's number 2. Okay, because the quote unquote light world part of that game where you're getting the different pendants from the different light spirits and all that shit and going through those dungeons and shit in the beginning of the game before you have to get the pieces of the cracked Twilight mirror, like that shit, like it basically, like that's like the Kid Link. I mean, that's basically like the light world part of Link to the Past, but Wolf Link is actually useful versus Kid Link, which sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And when you get the Master Sword, you actually feel dangerous in that game. It's like, oh man, I've been cursed to stay as a wolf, but now I've got the Master Sword. I've been turned. Now I have the ability to turn into a wolf anytime I want to, and I can fuck some shit up now with the Master Sword. And you feel dangerous and badass. Whereas in Ocarina of Time, when you finally do get the Master Sword, it's a trick. It's like now you get.
Yeah.
It's like now I'm stuck in a sleep for 7 years, and everything gets turned to shit. And this old man came into the sleeping in the hyper chamber where I was asleep and growing, shaved my face to make sure I wouldn't have a beard, and pierced my ears. What the fuck's up with that? But enough about that. So yeah. Wind Waker is, I'll put that at number 3. I put it after Twilight Princess. I like Wind Waker, but The Great Sea is one of the most boring, half-assed, useless, like The Great Sea is flying through the sky and having like it be fucking empty in Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
Yeah. Behind that, I'm gonna put Link's Awakening. Yeah. The original or DX, I don't include the remake on the Nintendo Switch because how the fuck do you do a remake that is inferior to the old games? They did it.
It was too damn expensive too.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Had they added some new content to it, and I don't mean, oh, we have the dungeon maker. I mean legit new dungeons, new weapons, like a brand new game. Like have the original game there too. Maybe the DX version. You know, you can switch between the two. And then the new game with the new shit. It's like, oh, well, you get a twofer. If they had done a twofer, I would have been like, oh, this is cool. They didn't even do that shit. It was just like, oh, we remade the game in this ugly ass art style. Like the reason Link's Awakening is such an amazing game is because of what they were able to do with the technical limitations of the time. Like you have a full-on Legend of Zelda game with like 8 dungeons, 6, 7, 8
Mm.
dungeons on the Game Boy
Yeah.
on a little tiny ass cartridge. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And then you watch it now, and you're like, oh wow, you didn't add any new. Well, you added a dungeon maker. I think they took away the color dungeon on the modernized remake one, so you don't even have the color dungeon anymore. I'm like, they would have done better doing Link of Oracle of Ages and Seasons as one game, just like combine the two in the one game. That would have made more sense than the shit we got. But whatever. Um, Anyway, so yeah. Link's Awakening is my number 3 Legend of Zelda game. Minish Cap, not even on the list. Link Between Worlds, not even on the list. Skyward Sword, not on the list. Definitely not. Why? Because motion controls in order to fight is bullshit. Fuck that game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I said it. The art style was good, but let me put it this way: the motion controls to fight enemies in that game, and how they made the Master Sword into Fee, or Fee into the Master Sword, is bullshit. I could have come up with a better story, and I write fantasy as a side hobby, so fuck that game. Yes, yes, fuck that game. Behind that,
Yeah,
number.
the problem with Nintendo is, maybe with the exception of Majora's Mask, the story is typically an afterthought.
I mean, I think there are Legend of Zelda games that have good stories. The original Link to the Past had a great story. Twilight Princess story was pretty good. Majora's Mask story was really good. Um, Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. If you play those two games in tandem, how they're basically a prequel for Link's Awakening, that's a pretty nice twist.
Yeah.
And how Link's Awakening is itself a prequel to Link returning to uh,
Uh,
for the
Legend of
original
Zelda
Legend of
2.
Zelda.
Yeah.
Like that's
And
cool how
also,
that's all a dove in into that original game, but everything else is just fucking trash, man. Their stories are Wind Waker's story makes no goddamn sense.
yeah.
It's like this makes no goddamn sense. Um, Twilight, Skyward Sword story. I'm like, okay, so you basically Girahim is basically Proto Ganon.
Yeah. I never finished that game. Does Girahim turn into Demise at the end?
Sorry. Girahim is the evil sword. He's like the opposite. Both Girahim and Fee are these sword spirits, and Girahim is the sword spirit of Demise's sword. Demise is Proto Ganon, and becomes the Master Sword. But Fee is so fucking annoying in Skyward Sword that I'm like, I don't want this character associated with the Master Sword.
Yeah.
Like I just don't like it's offensive to me. Um, it's like it's kind of like in the Alien movies. Instead of saying that the xenomorphs are these ancient species, bioengineered to exterminate life, they make it so that a fucking android. It's heavily implied that David genetically engineered the aliens to kill off humanity, and I'm like, that's offensive to me. That's a trash ass story. Um, so
Wait, what movie was that?
in the Alien Covenant and Prometheus,
Yeah.
David, the android from Alien from Prometheus, basically Shaw. He basically is supposed to watch over her when she sleeps, but he actually the whole time is fucking with like he and like when she has sex with that guy on the ship who got infected with a black liquid, it makes it so that she can get pregnant. Because her whole thing is that I'm barren, I can't have children. So her body starts
Yeah.
producing ovaries and shit like that. It's implied that David took her out of hypersleep and used her as the template in order to biologically engineer the xenomorphs. That's why you have a
Oh,
queen,
shoot.
and they're all females, and they lay eggs, and the eggs impregnate people and come out of their chest. Like that's what
So the xenomorphs aren't even real; they're just synthetic.
that's what
Right?
the guy who created Ridley Scott. That's the shit he did. I'm like, this is trash. This is, yeah, exactly. That's why I'm like,
That's
fuck this
disappointing.
series. Yeah, this is trash.
That's
This is fucking
disappointing. Yeah,
trash.
like that. Yeah, that's that's the trouble you go into when you over explain your
Well, that's when you want to
even
connect everything to your fucking movie. Like the problem, like I
that is
said, it would have
weird.
done better if they had said that, hey, the engineers were this ancient species. They created all these other species, and they also created the xenomorphs. There,
Yeah.
enough said. Because you cannot reconcile that first movie where that ship looks old as shit. Like older than humanity had been. Like maybe when humanity was fucking still walking out the jungles, that ship crash landed. To say that, oh, an android created by humanity created the xenomorphs. Bullshit.
That
Bullshit.
that is
Bullshit.
yeah.
That's bullshit. Like sometimes you can retcon and change lore so much that it becomes bullshit. That's my issue that I have with a lot of people retconning shit. That's why I don't like the whole, oh, I like Skyward Sword and fee, fuck you. Fuck that
Yeah.
character, and fuck that character being one of the most iconic weapons in video gamedom is that shit. Fuck you.
Yeah.
Spirit
And the
tracks.
king of Ret and then the king of Retcon who passed away a few months ago, Akira Toriyama. Talk about but in any case, what were you gonna say?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call Akira Toriyama the king of retcon. I would say that Akira Toriyama never took his shit that seriously.
Yeah,
He was just
yeah,
having fun. Like if you were
yeah, that's
considering Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, like the only series you can consider as being like canon for me, like Super feels like a fan made thing made by the original creator. That's basically what
yeah.
Super feels like to me. For me, Dragon Ball is Dragon Ball Z. That's it. That's all I need.
I actually find Super. I used to hate Super because stuff I saw.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm actually starting to find it entertaining just for the fact,
Yeah, if you treat it
if
as
you
its
don't
own
take it
thing.
seriously,
Yeah, if
if
you
you
treat
don't take it
Super as its own
seriously, it's
thing,
actually kind of fun.
yeah, if you treat
Yeah,
Super as its own thing, it's interesting.
yeah,
The only thing in Super, the only post Dragon Ball Z thing that I'm like, okay, this is cool, is I like Super Saiyan 4 from GT, and I liked Dragon Ball Superhero, which is the one that has Piccolo and Gohan. And Gohan
yeah.
gets
That one,
Gohan
I
Beast,
enjoyed
and Piccolo gets
that.
Piccolo Gold mode, where he
Yeah,
turns into Orange Piccolo. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Aside from that, I really don't give a fuck. But then again, that's because my favorite characters in Dragon Ball are Gohan and Piccolo because they're the only characters who have fucking character arcs in Dragon Ball.
development. Yeah, yeah,
Goku has no character arc. Vegeta, they're like, oh well, he has no, he doesn't. Vegeta gets an unearned redemption because Vegeta's a piece of shit too.
yeah.
Like, are we gonna forget that city of people he just murdered and the numerous planets he subjugated and destroyed? Fuck Vegeta. All right, there I said
Yeah.
it. Anyway, yeah, yeah. So, anyway, enough about that. Let's keep it going. So, yeah, basically that list was bullshit, and they're wrong. They're wrong. They are wrong. They are wrong.
Yeah.
It's like Scrubs with Dr. Cox, Dr. Percival Cox. Wrong, 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 wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. And I say this as someone who's been playing The Legend of Zelda. Like, literally, I'm just as old as the Legend of Zelda series. The Legend of Zelda came out in 1986. I was born in 1986.
Yeah.
So I'm old enough I grew up with this series. Fuck you, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You're wrong. Anyway, with that being said, um, I guess it's time to move on to the next. Anything you'd like to add before we move on to the next topic?
Um, nah, I'm good.
All right. Next topic is Hironobu Sakaguchi came back. He came home to the house that he built. He came back to Square Enix, and they're publishing Fantasian, which was originally an Apple Arcade game. It's being optimized for consoles and other platforms. I'm glad I'm gonna play it because it's Hironobu fucking Sakaguchi. And even Hironobu Sakaguchi said the most complete game in the series is Final Fantasy VI. Boom! Yeah, bitches.
That's
I
pretty
said it
crazy.
for years. Everyone's like, oh, Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy X. 6.
I mean, IGN when they had it was a few years ago when they had the best list of best Final Fantasy games. Final Fantasy VI is the number one.
Yeah.
Pissed off a lot of Final Fantasy VII fans though.
Yeah, well, Final Fantasy fans can go eat a bag of dicks.
Yeah, that game is pretty good.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VI fans can eat a bag of dicks. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, Final Fantasy VI, not a great game. All right. I'm sorry, Final Fantasy VII, not a great game. Final Fantasy VII is an ugly ass game. Okay, it's ugly. The characters are boring. The combat system is basic bitch combat system. Um, the Magicite system is kind of like the overdrive system is basically the special skills that each character had in Final Fantasy VI. Final Fantasy VII is like a 3D version of Final Fantasy VI without the interesting villain. And now people are like, I love Sephiroth. Do you?
Yeah.
Do you?
I mean, another thing I have problems with the remake of Final Fantasy VII. Not necessarily, but when I first saw it and I heard one of the main themes, one of the main battle themes, like they ruined the soundtrack. They
Yeah.
completely obliterated. They tried to do too much with the orchestral stuff.
Well, it's too
I
rock
mean,
and roll. Like the combat, the normal combat fight is too rock and roll. It's not that. I mean, there's something about that pixelish quality that you had, that 16-bit quality you had in Final Fantasy six. Um, and I mean, like I said, like Kefka versus Sephiroth. Kefka's a more interesting villain. So, okay, let me put it this way: Sephiroth. I am a monstrosity created from the DNA of an alien that fell, that was dead on arrival on what's the name of the planet? Midgar, some shit like that. And because I found out that I am the clone child experiment created from these cells, everyone must die. I'm like, that's your motivation? That's a shit motivation to destroy the world. Now here's Kefka's motivation to destroy the world. I was a kid who was taken off the streets or from my family. I was experimented on, and it drove me crazy. And I was crazy until I became sane. And I want the world to worship me. And I'm going to pretend like I'm crazy while doing horrific, horrific, evil things. So much so that no one ever knows that I have a master plan in place. And then, when the emperor of the one of the most powerful empires in the world thinks he's got everything in his hands, I'm gonna take his ass out and make myself the god of magic. And he did it. He succeeded. And he
Well,
breaks the world when they refuse to worship him. He's like, "You will worship me, for I'm the god." And they're like, "Fuck you." He's like, "Oh yeah, okay." Yeah, destroy, cracks the world. The latter half,
Yeah,
the latter third of the game is the ruined world, where like Kefka's basically threw a temper tantrum and destroyed most of the world. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yep.
That's way more badass than Sephiroth. "Oh, I didn't know my mom, so the world has to be destroyed." Really? For real? This is fuck you, you bitch. What I'm saying is that Sephiroth is a bitch.
Yeah.
Sephiroth is a bitch. People are like, "I love the one-winged angel theme." That's cool. You can like that theme. I like the battle music from Final Fantasy VI better, though. I think it's better, and plus, I just like that game better. Anyway, yes, Final Fantasy VI is amazing. I love that game. I would love a sequel to Final Fantasy VI. I would play the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, with that being said, your thoughts on it? Agree, disagree, don't care? Are there any other Final Fantasies you think are kind of getting are undervalued?
Uh, I wouldn't say so.
Okay, I'll add another one to the fire. Final Fantasy V is a better version of Final Fantasy III. Its story is kind of basic, but the battle system is one of the best battle systems we've ever had in a Final Fantasy game. The ability to basically build your party any way you want to and have, job classes and mix and match job classes is amazing. Like, you could make a monk who is also a white mage and have a high HP, high magical resistance, fisticuff beaten monk who can also heal the fuck out of your party. You can do that in Final Fantasy V. You can create the ultimate damage dealing blade warrior by having a mystic knight combined with a samurai and have like master those two skills and then build a character who has three of those skills: X fight from the archer, wielding samurai swords, and have mystic knight abilities. Therefore, having your character be able to attack 8 times with a high critical hit rate, but also cast magic spells on their weapons to do elemental damage, destroying your enemies in horrific ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can do that in Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy V should be called, "Hey, you want to break the game? Go ahead." The game. Anyway, that's it. Um, I guess it's time to move on to the next topic. Anything you want to add before we move on to the final two topics?
Nah.
All right, last two topics. Free topic and then unpopular opinion. Do you have a free topic you'd like to bring up?
Um.
Something you want to talk about that we haven't covered yet?
See. Concord got shut down. Um. That game was. That game, by all metrics, apparently was terrible. Uh,
It is also flopping, apparently.
Flopping. There was only like 25,000 people playing, and then they lost all those people, and then just like, well, that's it, guys. We're shutting her down.
Well, they also put that game out with almost no fanfare. They were like, "You should play this." Why? Because we just put it out. I'm like they didn't sell that shit at all.
No. Oh, they did not.
Like, if you're gonna sell a game, you gotta, like, I mean, they didn't advertise it. They didn't sell it. Like, Sony's like, "You should play this because it's put out by Sony." I'm like, that's not a valid reason. That's like a dude dating a girl and saying, "Hey, you heterosexual?" "Yeah." "Well, I'm heterosexual. You should date me." It's like, that's not a good reason to date somebody.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
There needs to be more going on there. Like, oh, you're a good conversationalist. You're someone I like to hang out with. You're attractive. Like, it can't be like, well, we're both straight and there's no one else around here. Let's do it. No, no, no. Sony was like, hey, we're putting out Concord, and you should play it. But you haven't given anyone a good reason to play this. Like, that's basically what I'm saying. Sony did typical Sony shit, which is it's Sony, you should play it. I'm like, that shit worked like maybe 10 years ago. It doesn't work now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's you know they kind of they put that game out there, and they were like, people. It's like if someone can. It's like if someone opened a store, right? And they're like, we're gonna open a store. Okay, cool. Are you gonna do any advertising for your store? No. Well, can you tell people what differentiates your store from other people? No. Well, I mean, are you in a good location? No. Well, shit. Well, your store is gonna bomb. No, it won't. But it will though, because you've done nothing to differentiate yourself from anyone else. You know, and in this world, Overwatch 2 is struggling. Destiny 2 is struggling. So if shit that is a known quality is struggling, what the fuck made you think that some new shit that had no marketing was gonna do well?
Yeah.
Because they
Yeah,
did not market
exactly.
that game.
They just thought that game was gonna come out and it's gonna sell zillions of copies.
Yeah, they shat it out and they were like, "Well, how you like that?" and just walked away. It's like, well, okay, I don't like it at all. And apparently, it wasn't doing anything all that unique in the Hero. Whereas here's Steam coming out with their new shit that they're doing like little closed betas for, and apparently it's doing real well. So you know, but then again, you know, Steam's been running fucking Team Fortress 2 for years. They know a little something about running online infrastructure for shit like that. So you know, sorry Valve. Anyway, yeah, but let's keep it moving. Um, I don't really have a free topic either. I think I covered what I wanted to cover. I do have a hot take though. Here's my hot take. I believe that the video game industry, if the Fed cuts the interest rates, which they probably will this month, it'll be cheaper for people to borrow money. And if that's the case, then that means that you'll see some indie studios be able to borrow money, and like you'll see an easing of all these people getting fired. Um, this is a good and bad thing. It's good because you'll see less people getting fired. It's bad because I don't think these companies, especially the larger AAA and AA studios, are going to learn their fucking lesson. They're not going to learn the lesson that they have to stop trying to sell all the games. You know, this sold to everybody. It's like, but okay.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's my opinion. I could be wrong. Any hot take you might have?
Um. No. No. Not today.
All right. Then I guess we'll just end it out with pimping out what we got and do our sign offs. Go ahead, sir.
I do music. Project Open Mic. It's a collaboration channel. I do with a couple other people. But yeah, I put music on that channel, and I also do a podcast every once in a while.
All right.
um,
All right. Well, you're due another one next Tuesday, so we shall see,
yeah,
sir. We shall see. This
yeah,
is Mr. Red Fox, owner proprietor BS Busters. glad to have you guys come to this cast. Remember, I try to do a cast every Wednesday. Um, my schedule may change, but even then, I'll try to have a cast every Wednesday. So at least once a week. So with that being said, that's in the cast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, play your games, etc., etc. If you would like to be on this cast, because we're always looking for other panelists, you can reach me via my Gmail, which is in the description underneath the video, and you can also reach me through Discord, um, or just reach out to me in the chat. That's the end of the cast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe, peace, and have a good day.
Good day.